Welcome to the Cold War Prepper and the Wednesday Night Talk. Can you hear me? I'm trying a new microphone setup, and this is going to be an ear pod. So if you can hear me, let me know. If not, I'll go back to the other microphone. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, hello? Okay, can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Scott. Welcome. All right, fantastic. Good to go. Okay, so a little bit different format tonight, but first I've got to let you know I messed up. We've got the last Thursday of the month book club scheduled for tomorrow night. I've got to reschedule that for Friday night. Tomorrow I have a conflict. My grandson is graduating from preschool, so I have to go to my grandson's graduation. So that means that I won't have the book club tomorrow night. If it's okay with everybody, I'd like to move that to Friday night, and we'll do the same thing, just Friday instead of Thursday. Hello, Stealth Survivalist, Shenanigans, Maccabeus, Virginia Bushcrafter, Deborah Slade, Diana too. Wow, what a group tonight. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off just by reading. Well, first off, let me explain to you what's going on. Earlier today, a good friend of mine, if I can get up there to it, why am I not? My little arrow thingy on my computer is not cooperating with me. So let me turn on the mouse. There we go. Okay, so now I can go back up here. So earlier today, Steve Smith put out a video, and the name of it was Be Careful Who You Listen to. And his whole thesis was about different, there are different people out there pretending to be things that they aren't. And he was talking about this one guy that pretended to be a humongous authority on drug crimes and everything else, and the mafia and everything else. Turned out that he was a Department of Agriculture pickle inspector. And so, just be careful who you listen to out there was the theme of his talk. I put a link there for you. Let me see here. Go back to banners. Let's show that. There we go. And then we'll go back to comments. Okay, so there's the link to his discussion this morning. Now, what I did was I put a comment on his, and there's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, Dunning hyphen Kruger. And the Lee way of saying it is ignorance is bliss. And so what Dunning-Kruger said was when people don't know very much about a subject, they have a tendency to believe that they're the master of that subject because they just don't understand the complexities of it. But as you study something, the more and more you learn about something, the less you realize you know about it because there's so much more to learn in order to be a master. Hi, Stealth Survivalist. Wow. So you were in the Navy, huh? Thank you, Holly. Yeah, he's something else. And we got one more week to see them, and they're moving away halfway across the country. Since we're in the middle, that's either one of the two coasts, the East Coast or the West Coast, and he's going to the East Coast. So we won't be seeing him too much, not as much as we have been seeing him for the first 5 years of his life. So anyhow, the whole Dunning-Kruger effect, and that was that the more you know about something, the less you feel that you're an expert in it because you see all the stuff that you don't know. And so that I thought, that's a great discussion, Steve. And I think maybe that my people would like the same thing. So I'm going to start off by doing a couple readings, and I thought they were very appropriate. One is one of my favorite philosophers, and his name is K Chesterton. So you may be familiar with one of his very famous quotes, and it's if evil is to win, all it takes is for good men to do nothing. So that's attributed to GK, and so I would like to give you a little bit about him. He's talking about change, and he's talking about how society evolves. And he says, we can see this change, for instance, in the modern transformation of the thing called a club. Now, think of the club as being a private pub or a private bar or something like that. When London was smaller and the parts of London more self-contained and parochial, the club was what is still in the villages, the opposite of what it now is in the great cities. Then the club was valued as a place where a man could be sociable. Now the club is valued as a place where a man can be unsociable. The more the enlargement and elaboration of our civilization goes on, the more the club ceases to be a place where a man can have a noisy argument and becomes more and more a place where a man can have what is somewhat fantastically called quiet time. Its aim is to make a man comfortable, and to make a man comfortable is to make him the opposite of sociable. Sociability, like all good things, is full of discomfort, danger, and renunciations. The club tends to produce the most degraded of all combinations, the luxurious anchorite, the man who combines the self-indulgence of Lucullus and the insane loneliness of St. Simeon Stylites. And he goes on to talk about, the reason people go to Florence or go to Paris or anything else is so that they don't have to stay home and stare face to face with their family members and get into a discussion. And hello, Deborah Slade, welcome. And so what we do is we look for ways to escape what is our actual limitation where we currently are. And I can attribute that. When I was stationed at Detachment Wobeck and later with the 502nd ASA group in Augsburg, Germany, I was the liaison officer to the 13th Signals Regiment, which was the British equivalent to the 502nd. And I would fly up to them. Well, I was a warrant officer, so in the British Army, a warrant officer is a senior enlisted. In the U.S. Army, a warrant officer is an officer. So I had to go to the Sergeant Major's mess and the Sergeant Major's club and everything else when I went to the British site instead of the officers club. But gosh, you spend the night in the Sergeant Major's club. You don't go there to talk. You don't go there to throw darts. You don't go there to play chess. You go there to read and drink, and that's it. And nobody talks. I asked a question, and you would have thought that was the sin of the decade. But anyhow, so people go there to escape the reality of the rest of the day. I think it also generates a whole bunch of alcoholics. But then I want to quote a little bit from Lieutenant General Flynn. He and I were together at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, when he was Lieutenant Colonel. And he says, this is from 5th Generation Warfare and what we can do to prepare for it. He says, manage your mind. The way to utilize mental toughness in 5th Generation Warfare is for all of us fearlessly to manage our own psychological susceptibilities that make us vulnerable to unseen manipulation. If you identify a psychological action, how is it being reported? Is it being reported with loaded language and or selective information? If the language used to report a situation or circumstance has loaded language, the wording will attempt to leverage you emotionally of the audience through negative connotations, which can be vague. This is a language persuasive technique that often involves the use of stereotypes. Loaded language has a significant emotional implication and involves strongly positive or negative reactions beyond their literal meanings. If you see the use of sensitive information and loaded language, stop yourself before you become emotionally invested and polarized thinking takes hold of your psyche. The same is important when watching videos. Resist becoming emotionally charged until you've seen the entire video, not just a selective clip. Make sure you know what you're looking at by asking questions of someone who knows more about the topic than you do. So I want to take those, I'm going to add a little story, and then we're going to have a discussion about all of that and what it means. So the story I want to tell you is the story of the bird that refused to slump. Gosh, my tongue and my artificial teeth are not coordinating tonight. The story I want to tell you is the story of a bird that refused to fly south for the winter. So it just couldn't understand why all the other birds flew south for the winter and at a certain time, and it would fly south. And he got tired of doing that. He says, "Why do we do this silly thing? Why don't we just stay here?" So he stayed to find out. Well, the first snowfall, he said, "Oh man, it's cold. I need to get out of here." So he got up, started to fly, and his wings froze. Well, as his wings froze, he just plummeted down into the earth and crashed on the earth. And he said, "Oh my God, here I am on the earth, broken wing, frozen, freezing to death. I think I'm going to die." And just about that time, a cow came over and walked over and stood over him and pooped on it. And he said, "Oh my God, I'm frozen with a broken wing and I'm going to die in a pile of cow poop." Well, so all of a sudden it realized that the cow poop was warm and it was thawing the ice on its wings. And its wing wasn't broken. It was just covered in ice. And if he could just get this poop off of him, this nice warm poop, then he could fly away. And he just started singing with joy. And so he started, whistling and singing with joy that he was still alive. He had a chance to get out of there. And it attracted a cat over. So the cat came over and started carefully pulling all of that poop off of the bird. And the bird thought, "Wow, this is great. The cat's helping me. As soon as all this poop's off, I can fly away." So as soon as all the poop got off, the cat reached down, grabbed a hold of the bird, and ate it. Okay, so that's the end of the story. The bird died. So it has several morals to the story. Number one, sometimes it's best. There is a good reason why culturally we do some of the things the way we do. You don't have to challenge everything. Pick your battles wisely. Number two is sometimes people who poo-poo on you are not your enemy. They can be doing it with good intention. And the third moral to the story is not everybody who gets you out of a deep mess of poo-poo is your friend. And then, of course, the overall moral of the story is sometimes if you're in deep poo-poo, but you discover that nothing's broken, be careful. Don't sing too loudly because you can attract bad things, but just be happy that you are where you are. So that's I want to use those three. I want to use K Chesterton. I would like to use Lieutenant General Flynn in Fifth Generation Warfare and the story of the bird. And with those three, I'd like to talk about 5 things we need to be careful of that we need to do as preppers. So number one, let me see, I did that. Number one, just like the bird, okay, be skeptical of everything you hear, especially on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or anything else. Just kind of ask yourself, does it make sense? Is it logical? And then ask yourself why several times. And in problem solving, we say always ask 5 times why. So this product on our line at Dell had dents on it. Well, why does it have a dent? Because it's banging into something. Well, why is it banging into it? Well, because the curve on the conveyor belt is too sharp and it's not making the curve and it's banging into the sides of the conveyor belt. Well, why is the curve too sharp? Don't know. Well, why can't we make it a little bit less of a sharp corner? And so we did. Problem was solved. So we had to ask why 5 times before we finally got to it. So that's what I would like. Hello, JRC Homestead. Welcome from Texas as well. So I'm in Central Texas, Williamson County. Hope you're close by. Maybe we can get together. And so anyhow, so we had to ask the question, why 5 times? I would encourage you to do that. Ask yourself the question, why 5 times? And then when you hear something, say, does that make sense? Does that really make sense? Um, One of my favorites is, the AR-15, M16. People say that the AR-15 is a weapon of war. Well, I will tell you, as a retired soldier, I am so happy they did not issue me an AR-15, but instead they did issue me a real weapon of war, the M16. There is a big difference between the two. Be careful of the loaded language, as General Flynn told us. Sometimes people change the definitions of words, or they'll use other words. My favorite comeback for the AR-15 being a weapon of war is, well, we need to get all the Toyota Camrys off the road and all of the Chevrolet Malibus because they are professional race cars and not street cars. Because that's the cars they use in NASCAR. The Chevrolet, and of course the Ford Taurus was one of the better ones for a long time, and Toyota Camry. So those were some cars that were souped up. There's a difference between an Indianapolis 500 car or a NASCAR car and a street car. Even though they say it's the same car, even though it's the same chassis and the same body, it may not have the same thing under the hood. So be careful, what people say, especially as far as generalizations. So number 2, not everybody on social media is who they claim to be. And I would say an awful lot of them may or may not know what they're talking about. So you have to kind of be very, very selective in what you're doing. There are a couple channels that are my go-to channels. They just provide good advice. Prepper Dog out of Georgia. He does research. He gives good advice. Prepping by Faith, who is here tonight. I really love her inspirational videos. She does some good study, some good biblical knowledge, and shares that with us. Pete from the Roaming Prepper is very, very intelligent. He is an engineer by trade and just knows his stuff, and he does really good research on what he puts out. There are some good ones. You'll find the good ones. You'll also find some of the bad ones. There is one guy. He claims that he knows everything there is to know about atomic or nuclear warfare because he has an uncle who was the only survivor of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That he went from one city to the other and experienced both nuclear, explosions, and how unsurvivable it is with all the fallout and everything else. Well, number one, neither of those were ground bursts, and they didn't have any significant fallout. They had some immediate fallout that, from the residue coming down from the initial blast, but there was no long-term fallout. And number two, if this guy survived both of them, how can it be that deadly? Just ask yourself some common sense questions. When people start talking about some conspiracy theories, just ask yourself, does that really sound logical? Do some research. For example, a couple of years ago, there was a really good, people were really afraid that we were going to have a Red Dawn event here in the U.S. And but if you take a look, just go on YouTube and say, what kind of equipment, what kind of air transport equipment does Russia and China have? And then what's the range of that equipment? And what you'll find out is it can't make it across the ocean. Then ask, okay, well, if it can't make it across the ocean, the range isn't there for their equipment that drop paratroopers, then how many airborne refuelers do they have? None. Well, then how are they going to get those paratroopers over here to drop them over the U.S.? So then we say, okay, we're going to bring them by boat. So we say, okay, how many ocean-going landing craft or assault ships do they have? Well, they have enough for one division. So we assume that they're going to bypass very effectively the entire U.S. Navy submarine fleet, the entire Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, or our Western Pacific defenses, and 100% of those ships are going to make it all over to our shores. They aren't going to meet any opposition when they come to our shores, and they're going to take over the U.S. Does that make sense to you? They can't do it. They couldn't do it back then. Now that they have the Panama Canal, now that they have Venezuela, and some other things that are going on, they aren't ready to do that yet. But now they've solved the problem of the aircraft coming over the ocean without any aerial refuelers. Now they've solved the problem of not having enough assault ships. They can land them in transport ships in Panama, and then just come on up the Central American isthmus and do their thing and come into Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Or they could just use what they call unrestricted warfare and fifth generation warfare, send over people across the border who do all kinds of terroristic acts throughout the U.S. until we capitulate. So those are a lot of the different things. So start asking yourself some critical questions. Very good advice, Virginia Bushcrafter, to trust people, ask them for their videos. The first thing I do is somebody makes a statement, I'm going to go to their channel. I'm going to look at their About Me. And then if they don't mention that they have some experience or some knowledge in their About Me, hello, Dave, then I'm going to immediately say, well, how do they have this knowledge? Now, I will tell you, sometimes they say things that tell you they know what they're talking about right off the bat. And other times they say things that tell you they don't know what they're talking about right off the bat. I think I told my followers before, but it's worth mentioning again. When I had my disaster response trailer doing food service, this one guy came up to the trailer and he says, can I have a dinner? And because we used the same dinner, all the different people did. And it was basically a boiling bag that we got from Cisco Foods, because what we found out was different companies that were under this contract, if you had different food, then people would shop where they wanted to eat, and that would cause one of us to go, critically short while the others had too much. So we decided that we would just do the same meal, the same menu all the time. This guy says, well, do I get a discount? And I said, do you give military discounts? I said, sure. What was your military? He says, well, I was a Navy SEAL. I said, really? What rank? He said, first lieutenant. I said, okay. I said, so how were you commissioned? He says, what? I said, how are you commissioned? Because Navy only commissions 3 ways, And he says, I can't tell you, that's classified. I said, oh, okay. And so he looked at me. I looked at him. I said, buddy, you chose the wrong guy to blow sand up a skirt, because, you picked first lieutenant, and you picked the only one of the 4 services that does not have first lieutenants. The Army, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps have first lieutenants, but the Navy has an ensign, lieutenant, junior grade, lieutenant, lieutenant commander. So it doesn't have a first lieutenant. So you're pulling, you're packing stand up my butt, and no, you don't get a military discount. So there are people out there that can open their mouth, and right off the bat, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, but there are other people, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more demure. You can probably see that they know what they're talking about. So that's kind of, be careful who you listen to. Then the next one is history runs in cycles. So one of the things you can do is, if you want to have a fairly accurate prediction of the future, then study history. Ray Dalio and a couple others have done some really good writing in here recently. You missed it, Pete. I just mentioned you a couple of minutes ago. You'll have to watch the replay, and because I said I lied and said something good about you. How's that? Can you accept that? But anyhow, welcome, Pete. It's always good to see you. John, welcome. And hello, Tofu. Thank you guys for being so great at putting up all those links, and the followers who have channels. I appreciate you putting those up. And then, of course, the one that's inspired this today, Steve Smith's Be careful who you listen to. But so I want to say that there are cycles. So one of my favorite cycles is that hard men produce good times. So the guys who went off and fought World War II, they produced the good times of the 50s and the 60s, the early 60s. And then the early 60s, we had these good times, and they started producing a generation where we got weaker and weaker over time. So good times produce weak men, which is where we are now. And then weak men, because they can't provide, produce hard times. So it looks like we're going into a depression that looks everything over that same cycle that we saw back in the early 20th century, the exact same cycle. So, study history. Ray Dalio has what he, and what's the other guy's name? Two real good books, and they're talking about the cycles of empires. And, just really interesting information that the U.S. is on the decline and China's on the rise. So we are going to lose our status as the world reserve currency. Then, and I think it's Ray Dalio is the one who talks about the fourth generation, or that China's taking over from the other three. So it started off with the Dutch, and then the Spanish, the British, and then the Americans, and now it's going to be the Chinese that have been the world power, the world reserve currency. Hello, Lori's Thrifty Kitchen Pantry. Lori, welcome. I hope you're at home and doing well. I think most of your videos recently have been from home. Let me see here. Let me catch up with comments, and then we'll go on to the next step. So I saw one from Dragon Slayer. Yeah, and when you have cross-service marriages, that's extremely difficult. Now, the good thing in my specialty in signals intelligence, so like we'd go to DLI for language school, and in my basic Indonesian class, we had two Air Force colonels. We had a Navy captain who's the same thing as a colonel. We had a Navy seaman first class, which is I think an E3, and then we didn't have any Air Force. Then we had 6 Army enlisted. So, we had 10 people in my basic Indonesian class. When I got to my basic Russian class, all of the Navy and Marines came to the Army version of Russian, and the Air Force went to what they called RAFAC, the Russian Air Force Oral Comprehension Course. So they focused on just listening, whereas the Army focused on being able to translate back and forth. So our course was 12 weeks longer than the Air Force course. Now, when you got to the intermediate and advanced level courses, everybody did it the same because you're becoming an expert in the language. And so we had all 4 services in our classes at the intermediate and advanced levels. So people intermarried. You would find Army marrying Navy, et cetera, et cetera. But the good thing is, I want to say 85% of our assignments were where all four services were together. As a matter of fact, when I was at Goodfellow Air Force Base teaching, where I met Helen, my desk was right next to a Navy Master Chief's desk. And I got promoted to Sergeant First Class while I was teaching there, which is E7. So I had to undergo the Navy Chief indoctrination. That was the tradition that anybody got promoted to E7 had to go through Navy E7 hazing, I guess is a better way to call it. Hello, ABC Patriot. Let me see here. What else? Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about the end of this month. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, the fourth turning point. There you go. Ray Dalio, Diana too mentioned that. I'm kind of concerned too because I have 3 paychecks. I have Army retirement, subject to Congress. I have Veterans Administration disability, subject to Congress, and I have Social Security, subject to Congress. So, I'm kind of concerned about that as well. Stealth Survival says that his favorite book is Get Thee Into the High Mountains. You had that posted at the very beginning. I'll have to check into that. Let me write a note here. Is this concerning the change in the poles of the Earth and the ensuing tsunami that's supposed to cause? Is that basically what it's talking about? Okay, got that written down. I'll take a look at that. And Lori says, yes, she is home. She's doing well. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, and nurse keep her busy during the daytime. So once again, I do want to point out that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, my grandson is graduating from preschool, and I scheduled our end of month book club for tomorrow night. So if it's okay with you all, I would like to move that to Friday night instead of tomorrow night. So I'll be changing the time on the announcement and everything else. And we'll just do it at 8 o'clock Friday night if that's okay with you. It is a phenomenal book. It's we're going to be talking about Avenging Home, which is book 7 of the Survivalist series by A. American. And then next month's book is going to be book 8 of the series, which is Home Invasion. So if you've read book 7, he talks, this is where they kind of eliminate the DHS problem, but then they find out that the Chinese and the Russians are coming. And so I imagine that's going to be a little bit more detail in the next one. So kind of a Red Dawn type of a thing as we continue to go along with the series. Let me see here. Hello, Creative Redundancy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, let me see. If anybody would like to be on with me and express their thoughts on what we're talking about, please feel free to let me know, and I'll send you. Well, here's what I'll do. If anybody wants to come on and talk with me about these things, invite. There it is. I'm going to put the link here in the chat, and you can just click on that, and I will let you into the room with me, and you can join in on the talk. Utah Mike, welcome, and that is phenomenally good recommendation. Don't overspend. Get yourself in a good financial situation. And if we have a financial collapse, then I'm going to say that precious metals would be something you might want to consider to maintain your wealth. We're not going to be building any wealth. The number one thing I would go for in a financial collapse situation is go for food. You get as much food as you possibly can. I've been reading, where is it? Here it is. This book, The Square Meal, which is the culinary history of the Great Depression. And, they're talking about how people basically starved. It was unbelievable. I can't believe how totally ineffective President Hoover was. He was, gosh, according to this book, he was one of the worst presidents ever. And if we take a look at what happened, that probably is true. Okay, sure will. See where we are here, Dragon Slayer. And gosh, thanks you all for being so active in the comments. I greatly appreciate it. So there's that link. So if anybody wants to join me, you can just click on that. I'll see you in here, and then we can. Yes, I did see that. Yes, and Southern Pepper One did a fantastic job of explaining that, and we could have predicted it. We've got a wide open southern border, and so that was easily foreseeable. Let's see where we are here. So, and Virginia put Bushcrafter says, yeah, water, food, and wood. So here's something that's really interesting. When you take a look, and I was reading a book about what the heck is Fort Supply, and it's just east of Tombstone, Arizona. So that's the fort where the 6 mules were stolen by the McClowrys and what was his name? Um, Ringo. So they stole 6 mules from the army, and then they found the 6 mules on their fort on their ranches, and that's where Wyatt Earp and Morgan Earp and those guys started that battle between the two of them. Really interesting. But anyhow, reading about that, I did not realize that the amount of wood they went through cooking and warmth and everything else. They had basically a company of civilians that the army contracted just to provide them with wood on a regular basis, and because the soldiers were busy protecting and didn't have time to do wood. Little Lone Prepper, I'm surprised they didn't do it a long time ago, to be honest with you. I know that they give them, what's it called? Not there's a different type of cell phone, the one that Hillary Clinton had that she smashed to avoid people seeing the BlackBerry. They have Blackberries. I know that all the senators and congressmen have Blackberries. They are highly secure, and so having a satellite phone, that's only 50 that they're giving out. So it'd be curious to find out which 50 they're going to. I have a feeling they're all probably going to the um, what you call it, the Democrat senators. Oh, Stealth Survivalist is going to join us. Hello, Stealth Survivalist. Welcome, welcome. I can't hear you. I don't have you muted. Are you on? We'll give him a chance to get set up there. Let me see what else. Uh, okay, but remember, I do want to get you on. We need to talk about some stuff, medical and emotional and everything else. And so I'm looking forward to that. And let me see what else we've got here. Okay. Um, so then knowing how to grow and preserve is so, absolutely. We need to have good stuff. And so that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself as you prepare your food supply. Remember, your canned goods are only have a certain amount of time that they're going to be good. Your freeze dried foods are only going to have a certain amount of time before they run out. What are you going to do after those run out? That's the big question. Stealth Survivalist, can you hear me? We can't hear you. So check your mic if you would, please. Okay, so then the next one after cycles and turning points and everything else is life is precious and short. Um, when I think about it, I've been here 70 years. So that's basically 1/4 of the history of the U.S. But that's less than 1/13 or 1/14 of the history of Augsburg, Germany. It's less than 1/20 of the history of Rome. So, when I take a look at all that stuff, I say, we're just a small itty bitty cog in a great big wheel. And so, if we understand that history has a pattern of repeating itself, and if we understand that we are finite, that we are human beings, our time here is precious, our time here is short, then what are we going to do with that? So study theology and study philosophy. And that's why, you'll see me reading books. I just got in a new one. Um, I haven't sent over here for my Saturday haul. I haven't even torn the listing off of it yet, but St. Teresa of Avila is my new one. She's a doctrine of the church. And then I'm finishing up with Sister Kowalska, Anna Maria Kowalska. So study philosophy, study K Chesterton, study theology, read your Bible, become a good person. I'm going to encourage you. Okay, Stealth Survivalist, have you got your mic on yet? We're not hearing you. I'm not hearing a word. Okay, the next one. Science is immutable. You know, go with science. I want to show you something here real quick. Let me see here if I can get it. Cinema layout. No, I want to. I don't know if I can do it. Screen layout. News layout. No, don't want to do that. I guess I can't do it. Oh, I know how to do it. Present. I want to present a share screen. Okay, share screen, and I'm going to go to uh, this one. Okay, so one of the things that I would like for you to pay attention to when we say science is immutable, let me see if I can't get back to where this works best when you have two screens, and I don't have two screens, so uh, I have to get back over here to see where I am and see that it's showing. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about science for just a minute. Um, there was a guy that did it. I said, two guys, as a matter of fact. I said that hydrogen or water does not become radioactive. That what happens when water can become radioactive because it has dissolved solids that are radioactive in the water. If you filter that water out, or if you boil your water and then distill the steam, that steam is pure water. It has no radioactivity. If you filter out the hard dissolved solids in water, then that water is drinkable. And of course, these two guys didn't agree with me, and they did long dissertations on how I didn't know what I was talking about. One of them even went to the point to saying that when a nuclear bomb goes off, that it creates five hard metals that you can't get rid of in the water. And so, what I would like to point out is do a little bit of research. When people say things like this, and then they say, if you don't believe me, research it, research it. So, for example, there are six major areas of chemistry. So, there's inorganic. Now, inorganic is what we might call valence chemistry. That's where sodium hydroxide plus hydrochloric acid goes through a transformation and it becomes salt plus water. Okay, that's because of valence in the atoms. You learned that probably your sophomore year in high school. The next one is inorganic chemistry, or I'm sorry, organic chemistry, which is basically the petrochemical. It's anything that has both a hydrogen and a carbon atom in it. Now, hydrogen has one proton and one electron. It's the lightest of all of the chemicals that we have, and it's chemical symbol 1 and H. Now, what happens is you can add another proton into that atom, and it's a natural occurring thing, and that's called deuterium. And the symbol for it is 2H, okay, or a D. But that's a naturally occurring thing where you have two protons in an atom of hydrogen. It is very stable. It is not radioactive. Some people call it heavy water. So that's what then there's a high concentration of this heavy water off the shores of Norway. It's naturally occurring. So the Nazis in World War II were trying to get that heavy water so that they could use it as a fuel because the hydrogen in their V1 and V2 rockets. But it's not radioactive. So the third one, of course, is physical chemistry, and then you've got biological chemistry where you're changing RNA, DNA, and everything else. Then you've got biological chemistry, you've got analytical chemistry, and you've got nuclear chemistry. So there's a big difference between injecting additional protons or neutrons into the nucleus of an atom and just going through a simple valence, such as sodium hydroxide plus hydrochloric acid equals sodium chloride or salt plus H2O, which is water. Okay, so that's kind of the 5 simple rules I would have you go by. What I'm showing here is this is organic chemistry, and this is just simply about sugars. So you can see all the different ways that carbon and hydrogen can interact with itself and become a different thing as we just change the position of where carbon occurs or change the position of where and we can change the position where carbon and hydrogen appear in the molecular structure. And so that's where it is. Um, okay. Oh no, I'm losing prepping by faith. Take care. We'll miss you. So let me get up here and see where we are. Uh, and okay, so how about stealth survivalist? Have I heard anything from you yet? Have you got your mic fixed? Uh, So with cans, what I'm going to recommend is you clean them and flatten them, and save that because that may become shingles for your home. We've got major damage here from a hailstorm that we had just at the end of April, and so we're waiting for the adjuster to come by and take a look at our roof and have the people to redo the roof. Thank God, 24 panels on my home solar system. None of them are cracked or damaged, so that's good. Just the pings to the actual asphalt shingles, and so I would say save those lids, flatten them out, cut along one side. Keep a pair of tin snips available, so you can snip it along the seam, flatten it out, and then that can become a good shingle for you if you have to do any roof repairs. Uh, Let me see. Stealth survivalist. Any work on that microphone yet? Okay, I can see his mouth moving. I just can't hear him. Hi, we can't hear you. Do you have a mic? Check and see that there's a mute button. Check and see if the mute button is turned on or off. I have you on here. Okay, I'm going to mute you. Okay, and now I'm going to unmute you. Now try it. No, I don't know what's going on. Uh, I'll let you just keep on trying to work on that, and then you just keep on talking. And when we hear you, we'll hear you, and we'll let you do your thing. Um, Let me see. A large part. Oh, he's smiling. It looks like he thinks he knows what the problem is. Um, yes, absolutely. Sustainability. So you have to ask yourself, and that's the thing. Here's another example of that. So we know that if you burn green wood, you're going to get a lot of creosote, and that can over time become combustible in and of itself inside the chimney of whatever you're using. So that's why we prefer to cure wood at least 6 months before we use it in any kind of a fireplace or anything like that. So if you know now that you only have a 6 month supply of charcoal or fuel for your jet boil or fuel for your Coleman stove or whatever, then now is the time to start getting your supply of wood cured so that you'll have it the minute that you run out of the other fuels. And don't forget, you're going to have to continue to resupply that and cure it. And that's why you'll see such big sheds full of lumber, and people lay them in layers. So they'll have one bin that's the stuff that they put in there 2 years ago. One is a year and a half ago. One is a year ago, 6 months ago, and then the stuff they're putting in now. So they have a total different rotation of the age of the wood. Are you there yet? Stealth survival? I'm still not hearing you. Doggone. Okay, I'm gonna drop you out, and then I'm gonna add you back. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, try. Nope, I see your mouth moving it, but I don't hear anything. But is that my problem? Is anybody else hearing them? Because I'm having speaker problems too. So, um, can anybody else hear them, or is that just my problem? I think that's Catechism paragraph 1029. So let me look it up here real quick. Let's see how close I am. 1029. How's that for pulling something out of my vast memory of trivia? Nope, it's not. It is. Oh, I thought I had it memorized. But and one of the things that the church encourages is that we remember that we're only on the earth for a short while. However, we are charged with being good stewards of the earth while we're on it. Oh well, never mind. Thought I had that memorized, but I don't. Okay. Well, at least we get to see a stealth survivalist. So, I mean, how about American Sign Language or cards? Either one of those? No? Okay. Am I just not hearing him? Is anybody else hearing him? I just want to make sure it's not that I have a speaker problem. Absolutely. Oh, I've got to tell you, even though I'm not a big fan of straw type water filters, the ones where you have to suck through them in order to get the clean water out. I think it's Life Straw has a 5-pack of water filters on sale right now at Costco. So if you go to Costco, you can pick up the 5-pack of survival filters from them, and that's a fairly good price. I'm not a fan of that particular way of getting clean water, but I mean, if that's all you have, at least you have clean water and you have potable water, and you can continue to live. Oh, thank God! I thought you lost interest, not internet. Uh, all right. So let me see. So prepping by faith has left us. But I will agree with you, and I will add a but to it. But we say it's immutable until disproven or until we add something to it. So, some of the basic things, we're probably at some point going to prove that E equals MC square is not valid as a formula, that it's probably a little bit more complex than that. However, it's immutable until we can prove otherwise. And so we kind of have to accept science as what it is at the level that we are at the time that we have it. And that's one of the beautiful things is in life we are given things as we are capable of handling them. I am so happy that we don't have science that allows us to kill each other even more effectively than what we already have right now. Uh, oh wow, that sounds really interesting. I love biblical archaeology. As a matter of fact, I was looking up today uh, because part of my Bible study this morning was about Joshua crossing the Jordan, and basically he caused the Jordan not to flow. Basically, Joshua did to the Jordan what Moses did to the Red Sea. And so, one of the commandments in Joshua, as Joshua was crossing into Israel, uh, the Lord commanded him to have one person from each of the 12 tribes pick up a large stone and then build an altar in Israel um, on the side where they crossed across the Jordan. So I was trying to see if if that site has been found or is known or anything like that, and I could see it on Google Maps, but never did find that today. So that's something I'm going to be working on tomorrow. Cue cards work. Yeah. Yep. At least you've got a positive attitude there, creative redundancy. At least you got a positive attitude. Little Lone Prepper, and one of the places in Dragon Slayer, one of the places I'm going to strongly recommend is another good channel is one called Rock Island Books. And it goes through ancient biblical Hebrew, and it shows you the meaning hidden within the word based upon the hieroglyphs that are used for the ancient letters of Hebrew. And so I really, really love that channel. Washburn Billy, welcome. Pete, take care. Please be safe, and love your short videos. Keep them coming. Appreciate you. Don't forget, if you're ever here in the Austin area, we got to get together for lunch. Okay. Take care. Okay. That's where we are. How about it? Creative Survivalist, you want me to just go ahead and take you off? Or do you think we're going to get it accomplished anytime tonight? Or are you going to have cue cards, or let me know what you want me to do? We've only got a couple minutes left. Let me get it here for you real quick. And so I'm going to go to YouTube, and then the search I'm going to do is for Rock Island Books. So I'm going to give you, how about we just give you Shemitah? That's a good one. So this is just a phenomenal channel. I just absolutely love it. Especially if you're into biblical archaeology. There you go. So you should be able to get that. Uh-oh. So we lost. Okay. Well, that's about it for the evening. I don't have too much more. I just wanted to give you those 5 things. So let's go through those again. Number 1, be skeptical of everything you see and hear on Facebook. Even be skeptical of me. Stealth Survivors, thank you so much for trying. I really, really do appreciate that. We'll have to find a way to make that work for you. Maybe we'll even just do an interview once you get it working. So number 1, be skeptical of everybody. Ask why. Always ask the counter. Be that person who is challenging everything you're hearing. Why is it all of a sudden, after all these aircraft have been up in the air for almost 100 years, is a contrail suddenly a chemtrail? Does that make sense? Just ask yourself, does that make sense? A lot of these conspiracy theories, just you got to ask yourself, does that really make sense? Why now? Why all of a sudden? Why is every contrail in the sky a chemtrail? These people are going crazy over it. Unbelievable. Number 2, not everybody on Facebook is who they claim to be. And not everybody on Facebook knows what they claim to know. So, be skeptical not only of all this stuff, be skeptical of the people. See if you can find a way to vet that person to find out, yes, they know what they're talking about, or no, they don't. Southern Prepper 1, Jason at, what's Jason's channel? He's a New York firefighter out of New York City. The Angry Truth, or the Angry Prepper, or something like that. Both of those, those guys were actually on the National Geographic, the Angry Prepper. Thank you, S.J. Mullen. Both those guys, Southern Prepper 1, and he was a judge. And then, of course, Jason from the Angry Prepper they did a show on him on National Geographic's show about disaster preparedness. And So, so I kind of have a tendency to trust those guys. I am kind of with you there, Dragon Slayer. I have a Facebook page, but it's limited as to who I let on it. It's primarily for our group here in this neighborhood. And so, that's the main reason I'm on it is for our group. But I don't care for Facebook. There's way too much confrontation on it. Same thing with Twitter, too much confrontation. There's just too much confrontation in general about everything. And I will tell you the truth, Clarity Jane, Facebook and uh, Twitter both dumped me about 3 years ago. I don't know what it was. I got an email saying that my account had been hacked and that I had to prove to Facebook that I was over 13 years old. And I said, hey guys, the channel's 9 years old and I'm communicating with people that I was in the military with back in the 80s. Does it look like I used 13-year-old, at that time, did it look like I had 4-year-old diction, grammar, and spelling? And thank you, Stealth Survivalists. Yeah, Doomsday Preppers. But I got kicked off. And so I had to wait 2 years and then apply back in, and I applied back in under a different name, and so I have a different channel. But I just, I don't know what I did wrong other than being a conservative. That got me kicked off of that, and the same thing with Twitter. I just, that was government control. But anyhow, that's just the way it is. So Stealth Survivalists lived in North Carolina for over 30 years and then moved to Quebec. And wow. I agree. If there's somebody out there that you really respect and that you think has good information, please share that with other people. Let's get the viewership up on the good ones, and I try not to mention bad ones by name. I just, and I don't even unsubscribe from them. I just don't watch them anymore. If you were to check, I'd still be subscribed to them. That makes sense. Yep. So here's a thought for you, little known prepper, that goes along with that. But and I think I said this last night, but I have this theory that when somebody does something bad, you turn around and you're going to affect negatively 5 other people. If somebody does something good, you're going to turn around and do something that positively affects just one other person. That has a very short lifespan. So that means that if somebody does something bad to you, you need to do something good to 5 other people to counter that. And so look for opportunities to let people in on traffic. Look for opportunities to give somebody a dime here or there, or $1, or buy a cup of coffee or whatever. What can you do to change this negative world into a more positive world? And that's going to be great. I like Pinball Prepper. I don't watch him that much anymore. I do like him. He's another Russian linguist, and it's to the point to where I kind of have to be selective in who I watch when, because there's so many great people out there that I want to watch, and there's not enough time in the day, to be honest with you. Okay. So a church Facebook page. Yeah, that's great. I have a couple of church Facebook pages that I belong to too. I don't use my phone for that reason. For some reason, when I'm on my phone and I'm doing, the trace words, there's these B's and C's. Whenever I hit a space, my finger, I guess, hits the B and C down at the bottom. And so if you ever text me and there's a random B or C that doesn't make any sense in the middle of it, what it was my fat finger hit that instead of the space bar. So I don't care that much for texting either. Absolutely. Do as much positive as you can. So, gosh, what a great night. Let me run through those 5 rules again. Number 1, be skeptical of everything. Ask why 5 times. Get to the root cause of problems, and discuss it with people. Don't argue. Discuss. Remember the Hegelian dialectic. It says that there's a thesis, and to every thesis, there's an antithesis. And once you have that discussion, then the thesis moves more towards the antithesis, and the antithesis moves more towards the thesis. You end up with what's called a synthesis, and over time, the synthesis becomes the new thesis. So Hegel says that if we do that, we're in a constant improving evolutionary loop. And I firmly believe that. So be skeptical of everything, ask why 5 times, discuss things, don't argue them. Number 2, not everyone on social media is who they say they are or knows what they claim to know. So be skeptical of them as well. Number 3, life is cyclical, and it's too short, and it's too special. I'm sorry. Number 3, life is cyclical, so study history. The thing about hard men create good times create weak men produce hard times, and so that cycle. Then we've also got the fourth turning point. We've got all these different things going on. 25th solar cycle. I mean, there's all kinds of cycles in life is repetitive. History is repetitive. So study history. Number 4, life is both precious and short. So study theology, study religion, study philosophy, study how you can be a better human being, how you can help others who need your help. And then number 5, science is immutable. So study science, study chemistry, study biology, study the rules of nature, study agriculture. That's a form of science. So, with all those things, that if you can do those, I think you'd be well off. So with that, remember that numbers, and we're not going to be doing tomorrow night. We're going to do it Friday night instead. So number 6, verses 24 through 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember, we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Oh, you know what? Let's do something just a little bit different. How about Oremus? So this is from Oremus, and this is Pater Noster, qui est in celis. Sanctificatur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum. Fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum ad nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra sicut, et nos dimitimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libere nos a malo. Amen. So that's the Our Father in Latin. Okay, so remember, we're all in this together. So please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care. Bye-bye. See you Friday, tomorrow, not tomorrow.